I'm Carla. I share with you some aspects of American literature between 1856 and 1914. In 1865, the United States was a country of farms, villages, and smaller towns, and manufacturing was more a matter of workshops than factories. Furthermore, the increase in population was due almost entirely to immigration. By 1890, New Englanders and their descendants were no longer numerically dominant. The most typical fights were between workers against owners, farm against the city, immigrant against native born. When the American Federation of Labor emerged as the first unified national voice of workers, industrial workers had little significant political leverage until the 1880s. Nevertheless, individual ownership of land parcels was forced on the native people through the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, fragmenting the collectively held native land base and resulting in the loss of some 60 million acres from native possession. Regarding literature, national literature had abundance in themes, new forms, subjects, regions, authors, audiences. The realism, naturalism, and regionalism expressed the challenges and rewards of the winning of the West. The characters depicted industrial workers, the rural poor, ambitious business leaders, and downcast vagrants, prostitutes, and unheroic soldiers. There was an important aspect in this period in terms of genre because women from many social groups began to write for publication. Literature had influence after the Civil War, and newspapers and magazines took crucial importance. American writers in this period, like most writers of other times and places, wrote to earn money, gain fame, change the world, and express themselves in a permanent art form. The nature of that form was itself a product of the interplay of historical forces, which was called the realistic international art story. Among the most critically pressed American writers were Mark Twain, Henry James, Edith Wharton, and William Dean Howells. The term realism labels a movement in English, European, and American literature that gathered force from the 1830s to the end of the century. Realists attempted to record life as it was lived rather than life as it ought to be lived, like idealism, or had been lived in the past, like romance. The two artists of the era were Mark Twain and Henry James. Mark Twain was born in 1835, and he understood that language was an interpretation of the real rather than real thing itself. Twain's work was realistic, and its use of colloquial speech and its parade of characters from ordinary walks of life, and he wrote around 28 books. The simple language of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which was written in 1884, signified the beginning of the truly American style. We can perceive that Twain was a Western writer with an oral tradition of vernacular speech. Twain died in 1910. On the other hand, we find Henry James, who was born in 1843, 8 years later than Twain. James was an author famous for writing fiction that imitates life as closely as possible. He worked his way from distinguishable realistic fiction, and his characters were described by an all-knowing narrator. In some pieces of writing, James made metaphorical representation of the flow of a character's inner thought, as in the Golden Bowl. Furthermore, one of the James masterpieces was The Turn of the Screw, which is told from the perspective of a narrator recalling a ghost story he once heard read out loud. James died in 1916. Both Twain and James were realist writers who believed in the power of language to represent reality in ways that were aesthetically satisfying and thus demanded the skill of the literary artist, as well as the observational precision of the journalist. This is all. Thank you very much.